one was hurt. No lasting significant power outages. That was last night. I just want to show people what Ghostbusters look like at the end of Ghostbusters. This is Ghostbusters, right?
I mean, there are some parallels.
Are you with me?
I'm with you. Sort of.
No.
The colors are a little different.
So that's what it looked like last night. The good news, though, again, this is not the second coming of Zool.
That is excellent.
The bad news is the government is shut down until 2019. The House and Senate both adjourned yesterday, and pretty much everyone went home with no agreement to fund the government, not even close. That means about 800,000 federal workers remain on furlough or are working without pay, even as the politicians who can't make a deal, they are collecting their paychecks. Incoming House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says Democrats have given the White House 3 options to end the shutdown. None of them, though, include funding for the border wall. The president says he still wants $5 billion.
And the other big headline on this Friday, the volatile markets. The president, we know, follows them, especially the Dow, and follows them very closely. In fact, CNN has learned Mr. Trump got a boost from the Dow's record gains on Wednesday, making enthusiastic calls from Air Force One on his way home from Iraq. The Dow roaring back again yesterday to finish higher. A prolonged government shutdown, though, could rattle Wall Street. Let's begin our coverage with CNN's Boris Sanchez, who's live at the White House. Boris, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Erica. Yeah, the House and Senate reconvened yesterday. They gavelled in and gavelled right back out. Not much progress being made on a deal to end the government shutdown. Democrats attempted to bring this stopgap measure that was passed in the Senate to the floor. That did not work. The likelihood now that we won't see much progress until Nancy Pelosi, the likely speaker, is gavelled in, sworn in next Thursday. Democrats have promised to immediately bring up those 3 potential solutions to the government shutdown that John mentioned, none of which contain funding for the border wall. Pelosi's office put out a statement yesterday. They write in part, quote, Democrats have offered Republicans 3 options to reopen government that all include funding for strong, sensible, and effective border security, but not the president's immoral, ineffective, and expensive wall. With the House majority, Democrats will act swiftly to end the Trump shutdown. President Trump yesterday did not have any public appearances except for that return from his trip to Iraq and Germany, where he didn't answer reporters' questions. He did make his presence felt on Twitter, though, the president tweeting nearly a dozen times, mostly focused on the issue of immigration. At one point, President Trump retweeted former President Barack Obama in a call he made years ago for comprehensive immigration reform. The president also tweeting about this fatal police shooting in California, the suspect allegedly an undocumented immigrant. The president here suggesting that his border wall, if he had gotten his way on immigration, could have potentially prevented that shooting. As you said, John, about 800,000 federal workers remain furloughed or without pay, and we add yet another day to that government shutdown clock. John and Erica.
Going on until next year. That seems certain now. Boris Sanchez, thanks so much for being with us.
Of course.
Let's bring in former South Carolina Democratic House member Bakari Sellers, Republican strategist Alice Stewart, and op-ed columnist for the New York Times, Frank Bruni. Frank Bruni did not even know that Zool had returned.
He had no idea.
He
it's
had
a good
no
thing
idea
you're here to tell him
that
John
the night
Brennan.
sky was lit up last night over Queens, but he saw it on our show
Not
this
a very
morning.
observant fellow,
So
yeah.
we're glad you survived.
Thank you.
The
I'm glad you're
apocalypse last
survived
night.
too, yeah.
Look, this shutdown is lasting until 2019. There's no solution over the next few days.
No.
And I don't see how it ends, but you do see ultimately a capitulation here.
I think ultimately Trump has to capitulate. He's not going to get, hey, listen, I don't have a crystal ball, but he's not going to get his $5 billion. And he's going to have to come down from that figure. And then the question is whether Democrats come at him with something that allows him to save some face. And, you know, maybe in the end it doesn't need to be that much because whatever it is, you know, Donald Trump will say that he won. He'll just twist the facts. His fiercest critics won't buy it, and Ann Coulter's head will explode. That's what's going to happen.
All of that, I mean, how far into 2019 does all that happen? Just out of curiosity, that's a lot that you just packed in there.
Well, especially the
exploding head at the end. In all seriousness, Alice, as we look at this, that is part of it, right? The president needs to be able to latch on to something. This is the way he operates. Even just in his tweet, he's calling this all about a win. Not a win for anybody right now, especially the 800,000 federal workers. But what do you think the president could find here that he could latch on to and ultimately swallow this and move forward?
Well, he could latch on to his experience as the deal maker and start making a deal, really. And look, he is dead set on $5 billion. The Democrats have said 1.3. Now there's talk of between 2 and 2.5 billion. They have to find some kind of agreement in the middle and move forward. The further this shutdown clock on our screen continues to go, day 6, day 7, day 8, the closer Democrats get to taking over the House, and their incentive to make deals dwindles. There's no incentive for them to make a deal at that point unless they get something in return. And I've always said the president needs to give Democrats something to work with, whether it is protections for dreamers or lowering that number. That's the way you go about making progress on this. Ideally, this would have been worked out before the government shut down, but that's certainly not going to happen. And Mark Meadows is working very close with the president on this, and he has been really firm on making sure that the president does hold his ground on making sure that he gets funding for the wall, regardless of whether or not there's a shutdown. And Mark indicated yesterday that the president is willing to back off that $5 billion and start making a deal. Now it's time to put those words into action.
Yeah, here's a quote from Mark Meadows, in fact. So at this point, it looks like it could be in for a very long-term shutdown, Bakari. And let me just show another thing here, which is the public opinion on the border wall. Because we ask, and pollsters ask repeatedly, how do you feel about a border wall between the United States and Mexico? And there's not support for it. 57% oppose it. That's according to the latest CNN poll from December 6th through December 9th. 57% oppose a border wall between the United States and Mexico. Not even really that close. 38% support it. Nancy Pelosi will be the Speaker of the House in just a few days, Bakari. This is not what she wanted to do on day one. She did not want to have to keep the government funded on day one. She had other plans. Does this muck up Democrats' agenda in the new year?
Not at all, because if anyone can lead, if anyone can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time, it's Nancy Pelosi. And so you can push forward other initiatives while you're trying to negotiate with the President of the United States. But one thing I will say is that Donald Trump, I believe, and I think many people would find this view to be correct, is terrified of Nancy Pelosi. I think in all of their interactions with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, you see someone who doesn't necessarily want to get into those type of battles with someone as shrewd who has the legislative chops as Nancy Pelosi. But what the Democrats have on their side is something quite simple. One, it's the irony of this. You have Border Patrol agents who are now out of work and being furloughed. We have Coast Guard members who are out of work and being furloughed. But take, for example, on New Year's Eve, you'll have a party at Mar-a-Lago, and who's going to be patrolling the waters? You're going to have our Coast Guard members furloughed, patrolling the waters, making sure the president's family is safe while they celebrate New Year's Eve. And so you have these juxtapositions which put Democrats in a very strong position, and they're offering alternatives that now it's up to McConnell and Trump whether or not they take it and whether or not they care about our government being open.
There is also, go ahead, Alice.
No, I think Democrats, in my view, have made it quite clear that they're going to come in and they want to open up the government and they want to fund some type of border security, but they've already laid out what their legislative agenda is, which is anti-corruption and voting rights bills, and they're going to put those on the floor and try to make some progress. So, look, I have, for all the criticism I have of Nancy Pelosi, I don't doubt that she's going to get in there and really work to get her agenda put on the table and start working on that. But we have this big, huge elephant in the room of funding the government. I applaud the president for standing firm on a major campaign promise that he said that he would get the wall built. But the moment we realized that Mexico is not paying for it, it put a whole new spin on it. And I think his priorities for that should have taken a drastic turn, because I'm all about something that someone else is paying for, but when it comes out of my pocketbook and taxpayers' pocketbooks, it puts a whole different priority on this wall.
You're laughing.
I'm laughing because Mexico was never going to pay for it. And I joked about Ann Coulter before. I did a long interview with her not that long ago on all of this, and she said even in real time, none of them took the Mexico is going to pay for it as a real promise. But they took the wall as a real promise. And you know, as much as we've criticized those people on the right, you know, who are holding Donald Trump's feet to the fire and are in some cases, in some ways, the engines of this shutdown, they're just taking him at his word. He said this again and again, and that's the real problem here, which is he welded himself to this position during the campaign, and then he spent the first part of his presidency, when he had the maximum amount of political power he would have, doing absolutely nothing about this, and now he's about to see the House go into Democratic control. It's the final hours, and he's trying to salvage something from a promise that he was never going to be able to keep in the first place.
Although we know he does like to, and who wouldn't as a politician, to be able to look back and say, look at all these promises I made, look what I kept. So he wants it to work for that reason, in addition, obviously. What's fascinating, though, is, you know, his tweet yesterday, it's not about the wall. It's about, in his view, it's all about winning, and that Democrats want to keep Donald Trump and Republicans from having a win. Number one, once again, no one's winning here because there are 800,000 workers who are certainly not winning. But the fact that the president's now trying to say it's not about the wall when we know it is about the wall.
The third person's winning. I will note that Donald Trump, the president, tweeted about himself in the third person. This is only about the Dems not letting Donald Trump and the Republicans have a win.
So it's like Seinfeld.
Right. He's got one more problem, and Democrats have one more advantage, which is the truth here is on the Democrats' side. All of the problems that President Trump says the wall is going to fix, it's not grounded in reality. The wall, the absence of the wall is not the major problem in the war on drugs, which is not even the war on drugs that it was yesteryear. Illegal immigration is not rising, it's falling. So all of these things that he says are happening and justify the expense of the wall and the defiance of public opinion to build the wall, it's not grounded in reality.
The truth is that there was bipartisan support. Republicans and Democrats both supported the Secure Fence Act in 2006. So Democrats have supported the idea of a wall or some type of fence along the border. But now the fact this has Trump's name on it, they're not quite as excited about spending the money on that. And that is completely understandable. That's why they need to come together and determine how much they want to spend on this idea. If they want to be a fence, steel slats, or as has been stated, a beaded curtain. It doesn't really matter, but everyone can agree we want security at the border, but we also want protections for dreamers. So right there we can have a win-win for everyone if they come together and have a conversation.
Go ahead, Bakari.
I think that's the point. I think for a long period of time, Democrats have been pushing, and very few Republicans. I mean, Lindsey Graham was one, John McCain, may he rest in peace, was another, pushing these comprehensive immigration solutions that usually especially from the far right, got poo-pooed on. So when you look at the fact that Democrats actually put $25 billion up for a wall, but that came for protections for dreamers, making sure that they could gain citizenship. Now that was rejected by the President of the United States, and now he wants $5 billion for a wall. First of all, that's not going to build any type of wall of any substance on our southern border. And second, even if the wall is up, to Frank's point, that doesn't fix our immigration problem. Net migration from Mexico is zero. The fact is that most of the illegal immigrants in this country are here because they've overstayed visas. And the number one contributor to our surging drug problem in the United States of America, or our ports of entry, and our pharmaceutical industry. And so when you look at all of these things, I think the facts are on the side of Democrats first. But second, we're not just going to give the president $5 billion for a wall that's not going to fix a problem just so that he can say that he did it, and Ann Coulter and the Rush Limbaughs of the world feel excited that they've kept their campaign promise.
Very quickly, though, Bakari, if it's not $5 billion, if it's $2 billion, and it's for the same things that Democrats are now okay with, this border security that would include fencing and repairs to existing structures, if the only difference is between $1.3 and $2 billion, how far do you think Democrats should fight for that?
Well, I think it's going to be about, I said it yesterday, I'll say it till I'm blue in the face, I think it's going to be around $1.6 billion or whatever that number is going to be. But I think that a lot of those funds that Democrats are pushing are going to make sure that we have a very efficient asylum centers and a very efficient asylum process along our border. Going to make sure that we actually have more Border Patrol agents, make sure they're paid what they need and get the resources they need and the technology they need. So it's more than just a wall. It's about actually having some comprehensive approach to the way that we tackle immigration in this country.
All right, friends, stick around. We have a lot more to discuss with you coming up in just a couple minutes.
First, though, more on this transformer explosion that created a spectacular sight over the New York City skyline last night. The fire at a Con Ed power plant turning the night sky blue. It also caused a power outage at LaGuardia Airport and lit up social media into a frenzy of speculation. CNN's Christina Alessi is live in Queens with more this morning. Christina, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, that blue light certainly sparking a lot of speculation, a lot of worry, possibly of an alien invasion. That was what the rumor that was circulating on social media, and the NYPD had to put that rumor out with a tweet last night. But that blue light could be seen as far as Long Island, and residents here were shaken by this the explosion that happened in the power plant just behind me. That's where it all started. Residents here reported windows rattling, buildings shaking. There was, as you said, temporary power outages. There was a temporary ground halt at LaGuardia Airport, but certainly that blue light catching a lot of attention.
Oh, that can't be good.
A transformer explosion at a New York power plant illuminating the city's skyline. The eerie, pulsating blue glow, confusing and frightening onlookers.
Holy oh my God! Look at the sky!
And sending social media into a frenzy.
Yo, why is the sky blinking? Yo, does anybody see this?
The flickering lights from the blast visible from across the city and parts of New Jersey and Long Island, leaving Manhattan's bridges silhouetted in blue.
I heard a giant bang. I thought it was fireworks going off, and I looked to my right and I saw just the yellow sparks in the sky. It looked like blue fire.
A spokesman from Con Edison tells CNN that an electrical fire broke out after the transformers tripped.
There's a high voltage emergency going on in the Con Ed plant.
But it was quickly put out, and no one was injured. Residents pouring into the street as smoke billowed overhead. The explosion causing temporary power outages and grounding airplanes at LaGuardia Airport for an hour, according to flight tracking company FlightAware. The FAA reports that every terminal in the airport was impacted, briefly leaving passengers in the dark.
We were at our gate, and then the lights started flickering, and then lights went out, and then they was like, everyone run, and so everyone ran out.
New Yorkers speculating that the strange phenomenon was something out of a Spielberg movie.
It looked like it was daytime. You look in the sky and it was bright blue. It was insane. It was a really weird blue color, too. I was like, aliens are here.
Oh my God, yo, look at the sky. It's blinking.
Yo, there's aliens hitting Earth, Mommy. I'm telling you, Mommy.
The head of a New York Police Department precinct nearby in the Bronx attempting to put rumors of an extraterrestrial invasion to rest.
Local authorities are still investigating the cause of the actual explosion, but they are describing the incident as unsuspicious, suggesting that there was no foul play involved. And, of course, local politicians trying to reassure New Yorkers that everything is back to normal, but we'll have to see what the investigation ultimately bears. John, Erica?
You know, unsuspicious as long as you're okay with the apocalypse, I think is the way that they should have said it. Because there's no denying what it looked like last night, Christina Alessi. I appreciate your reporting on this.
That's right.
But this was sketchy. I mean, I will say this was sketchy.
Well, it lasted for a little bit, too, that blue glow.
Lasted for long enough for everyone who works at CNN to pull out their cameras and film it.
Yes.
I will note that all of the footage here, that's Lenny Boren, who's a CNN producer there. Jim Murphy, a CNN producer, also shot some of this video. Lenny's is really good, though. Look at that. And just because, I just want to compare this once again to Ghostbusters, because I think this is
because we can.
Well, not just because we can, because I think it's important. Look, you're going to tell me that these two aren't connected? See?
Did you bring your suit? Like, are you ready?
See, this is what happened last
For later,
night.
in case you're called into service?
Yeah, I have that. I have the flux capacitor.
One of my kids was a
wait, is
Ghostbuster
that
once for Halloween. I should
Really?
have brought that. Yeah. I could have brought you Sawyer's pack.
I needed it.
Next time.
So the new year will hopefully bring us safety from Zool and a new reality and dynamic to Washington. Up next, we discuss the challenges ahead for President Trump with a divided Congress and Vince Clortho.
When the 116th Congress convenes next week, it will be the first time in 8 years the Democrats have the power to set the agenda in the House. while Republicans in the Senate widen their majority. And in case you're wondering just what Democrats are planning to do in the House, CNN has learned committees are hiring lawyers, laying the groundwork for investigations. Let's welcome back Bakari Sellers, Alice Stewart, and Frank Bruni. Listen, in a lot of ways, this is not surprising, but it is interesting that this is the reporting that the job descriptions are out there. This is what is needed in the House. And specifically, we can put up this recent House Judiciary Committee job posting, which was reviewed by CNN. Here's the focus. Here's the variety of expertise that is being looked at. Criminal law, immigration law, constitutional law, IP, commercial. I mean, I don't know, Bakari. Is there anything that's not on the list?
Well, it looks as if we're gonna take a few young people out of law school and create some hires and some job openings in the legal field. But let me just remind people that Democrats aren't just going to be focused on oversight and investigations. Yes, that's a part of it. But we're going to have some voting rights bills, some civil rights bills, a wide variety of things that are going to hit the floor of the House in the first month or two, which we're going to run parallel tracks with the investigation. So, yes, we are hiring a bunch of lawyers. We will be doing a bunch of oversight. It will be, especially Elijah Cummings, will be a thorn in Donald Trump's side. However, that will not be the only thing that Democrats will be doing, because House Democrats have to do most of the work, because as Frank and Alice know, most of the Democrats in the Senate are running for president of the United States.
Yes. Can we just put that job posting up again? Can we just put that job posting up once again? Because this can't be real. This almost seems like a joke job posting from the House Judiciary Committee. They want people with expertise in criminal law, immigration law, constitutional law, intellectual property law, commercial and administrative law, including antitrust and bankruptcy and oversight work. Also plumbing.
John,
I mean, that's like everything.
John,
Go ahead.
that answers the question. Before the midterm elections, a lot of Republicans were asking the questions, well, what are Democrats' plans when they, if they were to take over the House or the Senate? Are they going to legislate or are they going to investigate? Clearly, they plan to investigate. And look, I'm not saying there's nothing there to take a look at, and I have confidence they can walk and chew gum at the same time. But while that is happening, I am fully confident this president and the administration will do what they've been doing and cast that off as more of a witch hunt, just like Mueller, and say that it is part of a left-wing conspiracy and convince his base that is the motive behind this. I'm truly, as a Republican, I'm concerned about that, but I'm also keeping my eye on what will happen with the Mueller investigation. Mm-hmm. In my view, that will be a bigger concern for this president heading into 2019 as to distractions that this may cause in terms of getting things done. So we're not just keeping an eye on what the Democrats will be looking into, but this Mueller probe is still looming in the background.
I get the sense that Nancy Pelosi is focused like a laser beam, though, on the criticism that all Democrats are going to do is investigate, in that on day one, the plan has always been to start passing legislation to show that the Democrats are governing. That is what she is doing, or going to do, for the next 4 years or 2 years, depending on what it is that she's Speaker of the House, Frank. Nevertheless, you suggest that when she does take over in just a few days, what changes is, not to overstate it, everything.
The entire atmosphere of Washington, D.C. changes. And I think this is as much a psychological question as a political question when you're talking about the president. He has felt like a martyr and portrayed himself as a victim for the last 2 years, even while Republicans controlled both chambers of Congress. If that's how he felt and if that's how he talked when he had everything going his way, what's it going to be like over the next year? I was going to say over the next 2 years, but we don't know that it's going to be the next 2 years. I'm hearing more and more talk and speculation. Do we really know that he'll make it that far? I mean, when you look at the last month, you know, the amount of turmoil, in particular, we're talking about Democrats taking over the House, which is the big new reality. What we've seen in the last couple of weeks is more Republican revolt is maybe too big a word, against the president than I think we saw at any previous point in his 2 years. So that's the other dynamic here, is how firmly and strongly will Republicans stick by his side if the stock market continues to have convulsions, or if it swoons again, you know, if more things happen along the lines of Mattis's exodus. I mean, these are really turbulent times for Donald Trump, and I think he's more isolated than he's ever been.
Alice, what I think is interesting, he is, you know, in the reporting, obviously, is that he is isolated. We know he's increasingly going with his gut, which I don't think is necessarily something new for Donald Trump, but we're hearing more of it. But surrounding himself, Alice, with more people who are obviously yes men and who may not challenge him as much. That in itself is a challenge for this president in terms of how he's going to react to what is coming down the pike.
Sure, and he has said before many times that he trusts his gut more than he does other people's brains at times. And I feel like that's gotten us into some situations that very easily could have been avoided. And to Frank's point with regard to members of the House and Senate who are closely aligning themselves with the president, they're doing so, and specifically in the midterm, because they're looking at where the base is. The base is still 80%, 85% in line with this president, and if that's where their base is, that's where they're going to go. And so that's why we're seeing a lot of them still staying strongly in line with the president. But they also realize, with Democrats in control of the House, they're going to have to start working across the aisle to get things done. And the slow wheels of Washington do not turn without some bipartisanship. And many of those that have been there for quite some time realize that's going to start having to happen now that Democrats are in control.
Hey, Bakari, can I lean on your legal expertise now, Counselor, as well as some of your PR experience here, which is that Rudy Giuliani yesterday in an interview started talking again about WikiLeaks and suggesting that, you know what, the president didn't talk to WikiLeaks, but even if people in the campaign or connected to the campaign did, even if they knew that WikiLeaks had these stolen emails and was going to release them, what crime was committed? Now, I don't believe in coincidences. So if Rudy Giuliani is saying this now, is that foreshadowing that he's trying to pave the way to explain away possible contact between Trump campaign associates, maybe Roger Stone, and WikiLeaks with these stolen emails?
So I don't think you need a law degree to say that Rudy Giuliani is really doing a disservice to his client. I think that's the mildest way I can put it. I'm not sure that anyone after this will ever hire Rudy Giuliani to do them any legal services again, because his foot is all the way down his throat all the time he opens his mouth. But what we do know is collusion's not a crime. I think most people know that. But what is a crime is conspiracy. And what you're seeing is you're starting to see these elements of conspiracy between Donald Trump's campaign and some foreign actors to engage in a subversion of our democracy, to engage in a violation of our federal election laws, and on and on and on. And so, yes, there are a lot of elements of conspiracy. And then you would have Rudy Giuliani. You can go back and look at the tapes of when he goes and says that everything that happens in Donald Trump's orbit, he knows or plays a part in it because he's that large of a personality. So you can't have it both ways. I think that, as Alice said, the largest danger to a Trump presidency is not Nancy Pelosi, is not Chuck Schumer, it's not what happens in Washington, D.C. on the Capitol, but it's actually what happens in Mueller's office. And people just have to wait and see. I think that he just has to make it through 2019, because if he makes it through 2019, then he gets to do what he does best, which is campaign for president of the United States. He'll be fully enthralled in a presidency campaign or presidential campaign, and he can kind of do what he does best, which is travel around the country and rally his troops.
Frank, want a quick last word?
I was going to say he'll do what he do best, travel around the country, rally his troops, and dole out nicknames to the 36 Democrats who are running, right?
All the senators, the entire membership of the Democratic caucus in the U.S. Senate. All right, Bakari, Alice, Frank, thank you very much for being with us. Happy New Year if we don't get a chance to see you again.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Her son died in Border Patrol custody. Now, in a revealing interview, she tells CNN why her husband took their child on that treacherous journey to America. That's next.
Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen heads to the border with Mexico today after the death of a second migrant child in Border Patrol custody this month. This morning, we're hearing from the mother of the Guatemalan boy who died on Christmas Eve. CNN's Dan Simon is live in El Paso, Texas, where Secretary Nielsen makes her first stop today. Dan.
Well, hi, John. Secretary Nielsen's stated reason for coming to the border is to see firsthand the medical screenings that are taking place inside the border control stations. Obviously, she is facing this fresh new crisis with 2 children who have died in less than a month, and she wants to see the enhanced screenings that are taking place. She will be in El Paso today and in Yuma, Arizona tomorrow. In the meantime, we are gaining better insight as to why the 8-year-old and the father came to this country, why they wanted to leave Guatemala and come to the United States. Well, we're told that the father wanted to find better work and that the son, they said they wanted to give him a better education. But they're also saying that the reason why they brought the son is because they were under the impression that when you bring a child that you have a better chance of gaining entry into the United States, that they were encouraged by their neighbors to bring a child. One of the things that the mother told Reuters is, quote, lots of them have gone with children and managed to cross, even if they're held for a month or two, but they always manage to get across easily. And critics of U.S. immigration policy will say this is Exhibit A with what is wrong with the system, that it's a system that incentivizes bringing children across, and this is the latest tragic example of that. Erica, we'll send it back to you.
All right, Dan, we'll take it. Thank you. A massive storm is being blamed for 2 deaths and flooding in the South, and it could now bring blizzard conditions to millions this weekend. CNN meteorologist Jennifer Gray joins us now with your forecast. Jennifer, good morning.
Good morning, Erica. We have a lot to talk about. We have this storm system that's stretching from the northeast all the way down to the south, bringing monster storms to places like New Orleans this morning, also raining in D.C., New York, Atlanta, Boston getting a mix of rain and even a little bit of snow. But all of this rain over the last 24 hours across the south with this slow-moving system, we saw 10 inches plus across southern portions of Mississippi. So we have flash flood watches, flash flood warnings in effect right now. And you can see that area, 50 million people under a flood threat. It stretches all the way up to New York City. So the rain accumulation through Saturday morning, we're going to see that bullseye right around the panhandle, stretching all the way up to the northeast. So it is going to be slow moving at the airports now for big cities like Atlanta, New York, D.C., Boston, all will see delays for today, even seeing delays as far back as Chicago, Cincinnati. Places like Minneapolis finally starting to clear out after snow the last 2 to 3 days. But looking ahead, as we look into New Year's Eve, things don't look much better. That first round will clear out by the weekend, but we have a second round that's going to come through just in time for New Year's Eve, unfortunately. So we are going to bring rain into the new year. So if everyone's heading to the city for the ball drop, could get wet, but at least temperatures will be warmer than last year. John.
Yeah, you're going to get rained on, and you can't go to the bathroom for 9 hours if you're in Times Square. So, sounds like a great night. Jennifer Gray, thank you very much for being with us. Appreciate it. So as 2018 comes to an end, the eyes of the political world, they're on 2020. Which Democrats will step up to run against Donald Trump? We'll discuss next. 2019 is just a few days away, but forget 2019. Let's talk about 2020. Which Democrats will be running for president? There's something about Harry. Want to bring in CNN senior politics writer and analyst Harry Enton. Look, Allison Camerata is off today.
I know.
Occasionally she does watch, though, and this is for her, because Allison always says, oh, why are we talking about 2020? It's too soon, it's too soon. No, it is not too soon. It's now, Harry, and you've done some calculations about when people jump into the race.
So I've been off the last few days, and I decided to go into the spreadsheets and do some work. And so I looked all the way back since 1972 and looked at the median entry date in nomination processes in which there was no incumbent running on a particular side. And what did I find? I found that the median entry date for candidates is March 12th. It's March 12th, the year before the primary. So we're just a few months out from that. And so I expect that candidates are going to start throwing their names in the ring with even
Well, no, that's the median, which means the half actually will come even before.
That's exactly right. Half will come before. And we've obviously already seen John Delaney and Julian Castro, who just started an exploratory committee. And that, I think, is going to be one of the more interesting things, is to see whether or not some of these candidates are going to dip their toe into the water a little bit. If I was standing up, this dipping that I'm doing right now with my foot might come across a little bit better. But I'm sitting so you can't see it. But the point is, will they start with an exploratory committee, or will they just throw their name right into the ring immediately?
We have the last 5 nominees, in a non-incumbent field who jumped in here. Look at this. And look at Barack Obama. 2016, 2007, which is 20 days from now. That is not distant from now. And look at John McCain.
John McCain, actually, this is like one of the funniest things. You work with producers and you're trying to say, when did they enter? And I threw in 2006. Like, wait a minute, do you mean 2007? No, I meant 2006 for John McCain.
Yeah.
He jumped in basically 2 years ahead of the election. And indeed, if you go through all of these different names that are on there, the latest on there was Hillary Clinton, who run, Senator Warren, I will take a hard look. You can also, Senator Cory Booker says, I will consider running for president. Kamala Harris says, over the holiday, I'll make that decision with my family.
That's now, by
That's now.
Yes.
I think that's what we're seeing is they are basically look like they're adhering, and we got some more candidates up there, but they're basically adhering to what the normal schedule would basically align with. It doesn't look like this is going to be one of those later years. If there's some years in which something really weird happens, you look at the 1992 Democratic field, that formed very, very late. Bill Clinton didn't get in until the second half of 1991. But this year, it looks like we're adhering to the normal schedule. Looks like candidates are going to get in probably January, February, March. Maybe there'll be a late one. There's sometimes, Wesley Clark got in very late in 2004, or Rick Perry got in very late in 2011. But I think at this point, probably the eventual nominee will, in fact, get in probably January, February, or March.
We're also learning that Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown is hoping to meet with former President Barack Obama. There's a part of this when I heard it that I thought, what is it? I just want to come kiss the ring. If I put that out there, people will know it's. Does that help you or hurt you when all of a sudden the narrative is, I'd really love to meet with you?
Yeah, I just want to have a nice meeting with former President Barack Obama. Pretty pleased. No, look, Barack Obama is still the most popular person in the Democratic Party at this particular time. He is someone, if Hillary Clinton's numbers have gone way down since she lost in 2016, Barack Obama's numbers are very, very high. Favorable ratings with the overall electorate in the 60s among Democrats. 80, 90%. He's about as popular with Democrats as Donald Trump is with Republicans. And so for me, I think this is someone, he wants to be able to say, hey, this guy likes me. He likes me.
We have Jonathan Martin with the New York Times on later in the show, who's got a great article about Bernie Sanders and some of the troubles that Bernie Sanders is facing. And Sherrod Brown is one of the people who may be cutting into Bernie Sanders' backing, including among some staffers. People who worked in Bernie world may look at Sherrod Brown and say, hey, maybe he's the guy we want to lead us. We have you here. You look at the numbers. New Year's resolutions. Yeah. What are the statistics?
Well,
what's the data?
Yeah, what does the data say? Well, I can tell you I probably am not going to make a New Year's resolution. But, if you look back, there was a Marist poll at the end of 2017, a year ago. And it basically said that 44% said they were very likely or somewhat likely to make a New Year's resolution. 56% said not likely at all. I'm in that 44%. I don't know where you two generally are. I feel like if you make one, you're probably going to break one. I was listening to 10-10 Wins in New York. This is one of the things I do on my day off. I listen to the news instead of appear on it.
You give them 22 minutes, they give you the world?
Exactly correct. I love their theme song. But in any event, so, if you were to listen, they said that, in fact, you probably should make weekly resolutions instead of making one yearly one. I don't believe in making any resolutions at all. But, what's so interesting is what people are saying, what they might make their resolution. If you look at the top answer over the last few years, it's, I want to be a better person. 12%. Maybe I should be a better person. Maybe I should call up my mother more frequently. It is her birthday. It is her birthday tomorrow, so happy birthday, Mom. See, I am a good son from time to time. But you also see a lot of people who are saying, I should eat healthier, lose more weight, exercise more. These are types of things I think are very difficult for people to keep. Maybe they made easier ones, they might be able to keep them. So maybe they should be better people. I think we can all be a little bit better, right?
I'm going to take the under on each one of those. No, my favorite thing, though, is there's a likely resolution maker screen, like a likely voter screen in these polls. Are you likely or somewhat likely to make a resolution?
Look, everything in politics can be applied to real life. I am not very likely at all to be able to keep a New Year's resolution, but if I were to keep one, maybe I should eat less fast food.
Show me the registered resolution makers poll next time. All right, Harriet, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
A police officer's very close call, nearly hit by